Captain Midnight.
This video is brought to you by Incogni. I will be talking about series spoilers. After my previous Percy Jackson videos, I've gotten a ton of requests to cover the new show. And I thought about doing it after the first episode or two, but I'm glad I waited to get a more complete picture, because this was kind of a frustrating watch. A one step forward, two steps back situation at almost every turn. I'll be honest, I haven't looked into how the show is received by fans much at all, wanting to just purely judge it for myself. So maybe I'll be wildly out of step with the consensus here, but in my view, while there were some really strong points to Disney Plus's Percy Jackson, and I want to make sure to highlight a few of those things in this video, there's one thing holding it back that really hurt the experience for me. Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief is a book filled with adventure and scenes that do a great job of building up a sense of tension and suspense. Small Goosebumps-esque chapters that are well constructed and a little scary. Sure, we're not talking like 80s Stephen King here, but there are moments that stood out as spine-tingling to young readers around the world. Percy Jackson on Disney Plus seems to have no use for executing those moments, and I found that really odd. I'm going to get into that, but I'm also going to take a step back and talk about the show as a whole. But first, what did you think of the show? Did you like it? Did you think it fell short? Be sure to put it in the comments down below, and if you want to share this video to friends or family who have watched the show, I definitely appreciate it. But enough of that, let's get back into it. So, okay, I really wanted to like this more than I did. When I made that Percy Jackson video criticizing the first movie, I was kind of shocked by the response to it. It was clear that there were tons and tons of fans out there who desperately wanted a far better adaptation of this story. Is that what the show gave us? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the characters better reflected their ages in the book series, it was able to cover far more of the material, and I do think do Luke far more justice than the film version did. I also enjoyed some of the new stuff it brought to the table, like Grover's conversation with Ares at the diner, which had some great character moments for both of them and really sold me on this iteration of the Satyr. No, and that there were a lot of little things changed throughout the stories, mostly relatively minor on their own, but when put together gave us a show that was very different from the book in both the plot and tone. The core trio I was really worried about at first. For most of the second and third episode, everything about them as a group felt off and needlessly antagonistic. Percy and Annabeth seemed to kind of outright hate each other, and Grover seemed to view this whole thing as some kind of chore or burden that he had to carry out. Now, to be fair, that ended up kind of being the point of those episodes, as ultimately the team pulled together and established more of a camaraderie, so I ended up not wanting to knock it for that. I do think Annabeth ended up pretty underwritten though. We're constantly told how smart and capable she is, and she does get a chance to show that off a few times, but a lot of other aspects of her personality were kind of minimized here. Her backstory is basically non-existent, aside from her relationship with her mother Athena, and there isn't even a hint of her crush on Luke. All of that added up to her feeling a little more one note than she did in the book, which is too bad because I think Leah Jeffries was fun in the few moments of levity that they did give her. Walker Scobell was solid as Percy, and randomly there's a lot more focus on his early childhood with his mother here, which kind of brings me in a roundabout way to my biggest complaint. Now, call me old-fashioned, but in a show based on a children's adventure book, I think scenes of exciting adventure where we watch our group of heroes go up against tough odds and come out on top are going to be more interesting than yet another flashback to Percy and his mom arguing in the car or being sad in the diner after the school rejected him. I'm not saying those moments are pointless or even unwelcome, but when so much of your kid's adventure show is long expositional scenes where everyone is in a really dour mood, it kind of undermines the fast-paced fun of this source material. In fact, the exact kind of scene that would have thrilled me as a kid seemed to be the first thing on the chopping block. An early example, and one of many, is the Furies trying to take out Percy on the bus in episode 3. In the book, this was really tense stuff, and the story did an effective job of building up to the gang being able to sneak away. Here, all of that suspense is just immediately done away with. Annabeth knows what Dodd is up to right away, and although they have that monster slowly walk back towards him, nothing about how this is shot or edited conveyed any sense of urgency or danger. It's also super goofy that these kids break the bus window and everyone gets off and no one is watching them or is curious as why they just did that, but whatever, minor nitpick. The larger issue is that this exact thing, taking a fun set piece from the book and turning it into this kind of half-hearted, boringly executed thing to be mostly skipped over, just keeps happening. They toss away the anti-M Medusa reveal by having the characters know what's up right away, and the same goes for Krusty's waterbed palace, and even the casino to a slightly lesser extent. They seem to immediately know this stuff, so they can just blow right past it and have more long expositional scenes about mostly off-screen characters. And again, I don't know how that's more exciting in an adventure story. At one point in the casino episode, the Odyssey gets mentioned, and I couldn't stop thinking about like a retelling of that tale in this style, just Odysseus pointing to Circe's island, "Nah, not over there, she plans to turn us into pigs," or being like, "Sirens? Come on guys, this is like the oldest trick in the book." I know it's not a perfect comparison, old epic poetry, but I think there's a pretty clear reason why that sounds a lot less exciting. Now, okay, I can hear some people saying, this is a show for people who have already read the book, so they want to be surprised, not just see the same events unfold. And I can see that argument in a way, though I would point out that the story beats, like the Waterbed Palace, which was a very fun part of that story, had never been depicted in the movies, so it was pretty ripe for adaptation. But okay, if we are saying that these scenes would feel too predictable to book readers, then I feel like the show has an obligation to replace them with set pieces that are equally as exciting and give young viewers that same sense of adventure as those chapters managed to. As it stands, how they embrace some of these concepts just barely made sense in this new version. Like the casino spraying the lotus flowers into the air seemed like it was going to have a massive impact on Grover. But Percy and Annabeth, despite forgetting who Grover was for a second, seemed to be able to focus on their overall goal just fine. I don't know, a lot of this was just kind of baffling to me. Like, if you're not going to do Krusty and his waterbed palace justice, despite finding a guy who is really well suited for that role, at least do something completely new. Something that inspires the same sense of creepy danger. But they didn't really do that at all. Instead, we get Percy knowing exactly what the score is walking in, Annabeth once again going invisible and knocking him over. So instead of a memorable, spooky little set piece, we get yet more long-winded expositions about the gods and their scheming. This isn't like an espionage show. No one is watching this for the lingering mystery elements. At least I don't think they are. But I feel like they were dead set on overcomplicating what the gods are doing completely off screen instead of making the immediate danger the kids are going through engaging and dramatic. A lot of that is just how the script approaches these moments, but I think another issue is the direction. Now, I did like the action in the Gateway Arch. That was pretty well executed, and it felt like an actual action scene, complete with our hero deciding to sacrifice himself for his friends and nearly plunging to his death. But other things from the book, like Percy's fight with Ares on the beach, are just far too blandly shot and choreographed for what these scenes called for. That's a pivotal moment in this story. Percy is so outmatched and so out of his league that he needs to summon all of his strength and everything he's learned so far, and even then he still has to be saved by the power of Poseidon. All that technically happens here, but it's barely conveyed with any sense of emotion or intensity. It doesn't really feel that much different from the sparring back at camp. What should be a moment that's clearly Percy rising to a challenge like never before, feels like some light fencing on the beach. The suspense is gone. Now, I've been pretty hard on this show, but I want to state for the record that I think all of this stuff is very fixable. They've assembled a really solid cast here. Jason Mantzoukas as Mr. D and Toby Stephens for Poseidon I thought were fantastic casting choices. The foundation has been set pretty competently with the Kronos and Luke stuff, and there's no reason that Season 2 couldn't improve by quite a bit. I didn't dislike watching through this, and it was nice seeing Lance Reddick in what is sadly one of his final roles, but there wasn't a real sense of exciting forward momentum, and that's something that first book did so well. It's already renewed for Season 2, and I hope that before they start, they can take a long, hard look at how they can better get across the action, suspense, and real sense of childlike wonder and adventure that these books offered, and lock into those feelings, instead of undercutting all of that nearly every time, like they did here. Listen, for better or worse, none of us are going to be sent on a quest by Greek gods. I know, it sounds like a nice change of pace for me too. But that doesn't mean we don't have to worry about monsters. Whether you're talking about all your personal information being posted without you knowing about it, never-ending robocalls from entities that got your number online, or even huge loans being taken out in your name without even knowing about it. There's plenty of shady people and companies out there willing to abuse your privacy for their own benefit. That's what makes Incogni so essential, especially if you live in the US like me and are tired of your data being sold so anyone can look up where you live and much more. Incogni can be a lifesaver. It's 3 super easy steps. Create an account, let Incogni act on your behalf, and then let them get to work, as they deal with all these data brokers so you don't have to. So go to incogni.com/captainmidnight and use code captainmidnight at the link below to get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan. That's incogni.com/captainmidnight.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes, too.